Writer, author, badass, and now podcaster. Who is it?
It's LSH.
Welcome to Talking Shit with LSH, a unique female perspective on sex, love, motherhood, relationships, careers, and the real shit women say and think about societal norms. Unleashed. It's not what you do, it's who you are. Who is it?
It's LSH.
Talking Shit. Okay, so this is the Head-to-Head with LSH featuring Dwayne Bryant.
Hey, LSH.
Aww. And so we're going to get started. You guys know how we do this, and I'll share with you how we do it on the head-to-head. We just have conversation. We talk a little-ish. I want to find out about you, the man.
Okay.
I don't know what you do now,
Yeah.
but you know who you were before, what you do now.
Sure.
And it's very conversational.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll flow with it, and then we'll see what I can discover.
Okay.
And maybe you don't tell everybody else.
All right.
So
it's pretty much an open book. I don't know if there's some secrets in there, but we'll see.
Let's look for them.
All right.
All right.
We can dig.
So tell me what you do now.
What I do now, a couple of things. I've written a book called The Stop, Improving Police and Community Relations. So I've been going to different cities, different states, talking to young people, talking to police officers, talking to parents about not just their encounter with law enforcement, but just preparing them for life. What do you need to do to create the kind of life that you want? Prior to that, my company, Intervision International, has mentored over 15,000 students in the Chicagoland area.
Wow. And
we have curriculum, goal setting, time management, conflict resolution, study skills, bullying, that we've been teaching SEL, social emotional learning, because I believe if you can impact a child's self-esteem, that'll make them want to do better academically. If you can connect them to their future, they'll make better decisions in the present.
Okay, so go back to the descriptor of what you teach the students.
Sure. Well, we've developed a curriculum. We have copywritten intellectual properties where we teach students goal setting, time management, conflict resolution, study skills, combat bullying, hope, the power of words, hygiene, communications, grammar 101, and it's probably about 5 or 6 other curriculum that we have. How
long have you been doing this?
I incorporated in 1997, so in January will be 20 years that I've been in business. Yeah, 20 years for a black man. I've had over 20 people on payroll. Mm-hmm. And
wow,
so, our first school was in 1999, Corliss High School. Mm-hmm. And the year we piloted our first program, Corliss had a 10-year high graduation rate and a 9-year low dropout rate. And they had the highest test scores that they've had in like 7 years. So that's when the Board of Ed realized, hey, there's something to this kind of programming.
A connection.
Exactly. So we were mentoring before mentoring became popular. Okay. Now everybody want to be a mentor, but we were doing this before all this evidence-based and all of this
Well,
stuff.
So let's talk about mentoring, right? Because there's something about the mentorship that works. Mm-hmm. There's your formalized mentorship programs, and then your informal mentorship programs. I remember when I was in my first intern in college, and I was given a mentor, but I didn't connect with him at all. I mean, we said hello.
That's interesting. Why did they give you a male mentor instead of a female mentor?
I was in a male-dominated environment. I was in sales. I was in Georgia, and it was a predominantly Caucasian company based out of Portland, Maine. So, and I didn't really connect with him, but so I had to keep him officially. Mm-hmm. But then through the course of this summer internship, I found another mentor who I would go in his office. We would grab lunch. I learned so much more from the informal mentor than I did the formal, the formalized mentor. So, I agree. Mentoring has been around for a while. It sounds like you've been doing it for a while, but now you get paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Who do you think is most affected? You're being a male. Do you find that what you do affects the males more, or do you think the girls, the females, are more?
You know what? I think it's equal because it really depends on that relationship they have in the home. A lot of our young people have broken homes where most of the time it's that single parent mom that's holding everything down.
Yeah.
So what's missing is that strong, intelligent, caring, compassionate man figure in the home. And if he's missing in the home, he's probably not in the school. He's probably not anywhere else in the community. Yeah. So therefore, what's lacking is, so this boy is trying to figure out, how do I become a man, but I have no examples.
Yeah.
So they look at his television, and that's a terrible role model if you want to become a man. These girls are also looking at, well, I have these these desires, these feelings for man attention and whatever it may be. So where do I get it from? So literally, I've had some very powerful conversations with the boys as well as the girls. So, I think the boys come back more and say, hey, the time when we had this conversation, literally this week alone, I had 7 or 8 kids from Huth Middle School, which was 6 years ago. Now they're graduating college. Oh, wow. Yeah, and that's it's amazing. Awesome. They're coming back. They're saying, Mr. Bryant, I remember that time you said this. So I probably have more of a longer term connection with the boys, just because with girls, you got to be so careful. A lot of times, men have to be mindful that if these young ladies don't have a father figure, then they're attached to them. And they may not understand, what affection should look like. And if you're an intelligent man, you don't have affection for kids. That's just not what you do. But sometimes when you're looking for something, you may misinterpret something. So literally, in 20 years, I have never had one scandal. Me nor my staff, one scandal, one report, one anything, because I'm so serious that this is about the kids. Yeah. And if I ever thought anyone was trying to abuse the position to me, there's so many things I don't do in my personal life because I take my mentoring serious. I'm 46. I've never been to a strip club. Right. All right. And just because I won't go, because honestly, missing out? Well, it's. I'm just wondering, do
you think you're missing out?
I don't think I'm missing out on anything now. Okay. But I say that because I remember when I was in Las Vegas, I went to a Siegfried and Roy show, and I got a call from a friend in Detroit saying, "Dude, I hear you're in Vegas." I'm like, "What?" So that lets me realize, dude, there's eyes everywhere.
Oh,
there's people watching at all times.
That is true.
So I would never want to, let's say I'm slipping somewhere and one of my kids' parents are there and they're like, wait a minute, that's the dude that's supposed to be mentoring my kid?
Yeah.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
So I just created a whole different standard for myself that there's things I can't do. There's places I can't go. There's things I can't say. So, sometimes people say, dude, you need to relax a little bit. I'm like, I'm good.
Well, I think I respect what you just said. I do think that depending on what your professional position is in life, there's certain things that you should be mindful of.
Committed to.
I agree. Yeah. And because I think that it becomes it can have a snowball effect. You work with kids, but also your integrity and, so even if you have a person that doesn't necessarily work with children, there should still be some sort of position that you hold or some standard that you hold. So it sounds like that.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more. I want to go back to what you said about the difference between your boys and your girls. Okay. Boys come back, the girls maybe not, and what they may be looking for, what they're lacking at home. So I do a podcast. This will air on the podcast, but it's a special edition, right? It's a special segment. The full name of the podcast is Talking Shit with LSH. Okay. And this is our head-to-head where I talk one-on-one with people I find fascinating or I think are intriguing in some way, and I want to learn more about them behind the scenes. But when I do the podcast, it's normally women in the podcast. They're part of the conversation. And I've had this podcast for a year. And somewhere along the way, in the beginning throes of the podcast, we landed on this question that really is all about women's sexuality.
Okay.
Right? And we start every podcast, the private ones that I do in my home or the public ones, with what kind of panty are you? Like if you could be any panty piece, in the world, what kind of panty? Bloomer, a thong, a G-string, we got crotchless. And then does that panty you selected match your personality?
Interesting.
Yeah, so it goes from something fun and cute and, somewhat, I don't want to say taboo because I don't think panties are taboo, but they're there. We also may talk about women who don't wear any panties and what that may suggest. Right. So we have the interviews of all of the panty wearing and then those who see you like, girl, you ain't got no drawers on. Why you got that thong on, right? So, but it's a psychological thing. I'm going to bring it back to what you talked about with the girls. I talk to women. You deal with kids. I do in the younger age. But I have women that are sitting in my podcast whose dads may not have been in the home, whose first experience sexually was with a man, but they weren't comfortable with their own sexuality, so they learned all of their sexualness from him. And then they're sitting in the chair in my podcast, and they're not very comfortable with who they are. And so I go back to the girls who don't have the men or males that they can talk to, and they misconstrue the relationship with a male that may on a positive level, with something other. But I think women do the same thing because they may not have had the dad in the house.
That's so amazing that you say that. Honestly, I believe grown-ups are nothing more than big kids. Really. If you haven't learned it, you still don't. How will you know unless you've been taught? And if you've never been taught, you don't know. Yeah. You're just 20 years, 30 years down the road, and you still don't know, which is why I want our young ladies to understand that having a relationship with a man where he doesn't want anything from you.
Yes. And you don't have to give anything, right?
And you don't have to give anything in exchange.
To make him stay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where he's just loving you, he's giving you advice. Yeah. But what can I do for you? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And so imagine, in my case, it's from a man who's a mentor. This is not your father, because at the end of the day, we go home.
Yeah.
So if you've never had that at all, it's so many girls, even some girls in middle school, high school, they feel as though I have to give you something to prove to you that I'm worthy of your love. And no, give me who you are. It don't mean your panties and your drawers. And I think even grown women, they make that same mistake. And it's like big girls.
But I think you're right. I agree with you in that. And there's an aspect of us as the female species. If you missed it or you never had it, you really don't even know what it looks like. I was blessed to have my dad in the house. So I have nothing but sisters. So it's all girls.
Wow.
But here's the thing for me. Well, I'm a little different than maybe other women when it comes to men. Because the girls, we could not date. My dad was the disciplinarian. He was really strict. He did not believe in boyfriends. I was regulated to just sitting on the bench with the guys. Now, I we could be friends. So I learned how to have a relationship that didn't exchange anything but you know, a platonic relationship.
Wasn't having that.
No, I mean, you had to go to him and say, "Can I call your house, Mr. Peanut?"
Right.
Like I just couldn't give my number out. I was that girl that said I can't give my number out.
Good.
So what ultimately happened is all of these years, I'd sit next to all the guys. You know, we'd outside. We're outside playing or we're hanging out, and I would hear every story, everything that he did with so and so girl.
Oh, the guys.
Oh yeah, I did the guys.
The easy girls.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even sometimes it wasn't about the easy girls. It was just he would share it.
Okay.
Right? And I'd hear, I'm like, oh, so they talk. Like they come back and they talk to each other. It would just be me, one female, and all the guys.
Right.
Right?
So you were one of the girls, but the guys. You were one of the guys.
So I grew to become really comfortable with men.
Yeah.
And I shared this recently on a Facebook Live, like what I really think. Like what I really think about men. I love the male species. I think you think differently. You're very direct. You know, you cut through the bullshit. So there are those wonderful aspects. Yeah. But I'm also the girl that had a different kind of experience. So I know what it's like to have an unconditional relationship where the man in my life, my father, didn't have any expectation other than, you know, an even exchange of love. Whereas I have friends, they don't know what it's like to be with a man other than what do you have for me? What can you give me? Or I will do this for you.
And what are you going to do for me?
And what's in return? And so even in my own personal life, I had to share where, you know, I think that there's a teaching the men in my life to not do this to my daughter. It's really innocent, but I'll explain. If we're around family and maybe one of the males will say, okay, to my daughter, if you give me a kiss or you give me a hug, so it's a relanguaging because then you're teaching, I think it's male or female, boy or girl, you're teaching me that my affection, there's something in exchange for it.
What's the rest of that conversation? Because that's interesting. If you give me a hug, what?
Then I'll give you a piece of candy, or you know, relatives do it all the time. Well, what you gonna do if you give me a hug? Where's my hug? And you give me the hug, I'll give you XYZ. I'll give you a piece of candy, or I'll take you to the park, or you know, I'll take you to the movies. That becomes something that we're conditioned to do. But I know this because I used to teach. That's something that you shouldn't do. Like I should hug you because you are.
It's an unconditional act.
So you have to teach that, but a lot of adults don't realize you have to teach it early.
Right.
And it cannot ever be any exchange for it. Yeah. Like you being hanging out with you is just because I shouldn't have to give you anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
In exchange for.
See, that's interesting. I promise you, I have never heard that, and I'm agreeing with you 100% because I'm thinking now, and it may have been the same when we were growing up, but we have a viciousness of these pedophiles. Yes. And this is a group of people who literally plot